moving back home with your parents. Now, this is a dead serious one that I need to talk about, because in my culture, we have multi-generational living. So there are usually multi-generations, which is unlike my American culture. My ancestors' century culture is multi-generational living. That is how the culture works. Sometimes your grandma, you have 3-4 generations that live in one household. For whatever reason, that has worked in my culture. It also works to where before you move out into your own place, you're not renting. Your parents is making sure that you have your down payment for your home. And when you're moving out into a home that you own, that you're working with. So it's realistic. Yes, sometimes that might not necessarily teach you the hard lessons of life, but you can also learn the hard lessons of life from your parents. Like, for example, my son just started working. He is going to be paying rent from day one. That does not mean that he is not going to have to save money or he's not going to have to pay his own expense. Life is about paying rent. So living with your parents doesn't mean that you shouldn't be paying rent to them, or you shouldn't be paying expenses to them, or you shouldn't be a part of the household. It just means that it's an opportunity with today's society, the cost of housing, the cost of renting, the cost of mortgages, the student loan debt that you might come home with. You probably can't afford to move out on your own. And it will be an Achilles heel for you that with what's happening, depending on how well you have set yourself up on what you've managed. You know, it might be the right option for you with the way the housing market is currently. You know, normal people who have regular jobs can't afford to have their own place. They have to be co-living with people. Well, why not co-live with your parents for a few months, for a little while until you get situated? Make sure that you contribute to the household bills. You're doing chores, you're being responsible in the household. Parents, do not baby your children. Make sure when they come back home that they are contributing to your household. My children start contributing to the household as soon as possible, whether it's taking out the garbage, whether it is helping mulch the lawn, whether it is, screw in some light bulbs, whatever it is. They all have their chores that they need to do. They each have chores that they need to do from the young age. And they know that we live in a family and families together. Mom and dad is not always the ones that are doing all the work and doing and taking care of you financially too. I remind them of that constantly. Number 3 will be never get. When we preach about debt, most of our financial gurus talk about debt. They think that debt is a big problem. Do not deny, look at our national debt. It is a huge problem. But do we understand why debt is a problem? Do we understand why we're living in the cycle? So one of the big things about gurus that talk now is they never tell you that you need to understand why you got into debt in the first place. What is the reason behind what it is that's happening with you? So you don't repeat it again. It's like if you take alcohol away from someone, yes, they're not going to be drinking alcohol anymore, but they're always going to be tempted to do it. But if you understand why you became an alcoholic, or why you became a food addict, or why you're doing certain things, then you can monitor yourself into understanding. Once you understand what your issues are, you are better off to not repeat those mistakes. So most of the gurus that I listen to, and I've listened to in the past, and I've read in the past, they never, ever, ever get to the root of the debt. They want you to be debt-free. They want you to live a completely debt-free life, but they overlook the critical thing: your overall understanding of why you got into debt in the first place. We have lots of excuses too. Why? We lie to ourselves all the time as to why. being bad with money, I'm sorry to tell you, the real truth is that is not a freaking excuse. You being bad with money is not an excuse. That just means you need to work harder. That's like me telling my son, because you don't like reading, because you're not good at it, you should stop reading. Or you should, you should have somebody read to you. Or you should, not look at books at all. No. You just have to work harder at it. When you're bad at something, you work harder at it. Money is a part of our life. Financial literacy, financial wellness is a part of your life. You need to understand it. You need to prioritize it. You need to understand why your money habits are there. If you have bad money habits, you need to understand why you have bad money habits and what you should do when you come into a situation with a bad money habit. How do you combat that? So don't just say, oh, I'm bad with money, and that's the end of your story. You're lying to yourself. You're making excuses. You're just doing something. You're just getting yourself deeper. Because what happens is once you take something away and you give something back, it's usually a bin situation. The whole deprivation thing. Once you deprive people of things, when they get it back, they end up worse off than before. So understand what your bad money habits are. Work on them. Recognize them. Find your solutions for them. For example, I have a bad money habit of emotionally buying things. So retail therapy is one of my therapies. So what I do is I do a lot of online shopping on Amazon. I've had to have a real come to Jesus moment with Amazon, because that is a dangerous place to be. So I recognized what was happening with me. I have a whole Amazon budget, because Amazon can be a problem for me. That's a problem with me, where I have to allocate certain money to different parts of Amazon. Because you can buy anything on Amazon. So it's not a budget for clothes or a budget for makeup or a budget for household stuff. You have to make sure you can separate that out. So make sure that, so you have to understand what your bad money habits are. You have to understand what your outlets are to solving those bad money habits. So this is Sherron, the Modern Savvy CPA, and we will continue with